Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at the lookup transformation. Basically, the lookup is exactly what it sounds like. It looks up or looks at an existing table or view or query, and it tries to find the source records in that destination. And if they're not there, then you can choose to do different things. You can insert them, or you can do nothing. There's a match and there's a no match, so you have options to work with. What we're going to do is we're going to create a table. I have a query that we're going to insert into this table. These are just some fields from a couple of join tables that I have right here. And we're going to use that as our destination. The query is going to be our data source, and then we're going to insert records into the destination using the lookup, so the records may be inserted if they're not there. So to begin with, I need to create a table for my statement. This query is just joining a few tables together in the AdventureWorks database, and I'm bringing back the reviews and the product information. It's only about 4 records, so we can kind of mess around with it, delete them, change them, and see what happens. So in order to create my table, I'm going to do a select into. And that should have created our product reports table. Which is here. For this, you're going to need the integration services module. You can click on continue without code, go to the extensions, manage extensions, and just search for integration if you don't have that installed. So we're going to create a new project, and we'll call this Lookup Trans. So the first thing I usually do is rename the package. And we're going to need a data flow task. And we're only going to need one connection on my workstation, and this is because the database where I have my source query coming from and the destination are the same. So you may have a remote database and you might need 2 connection managers. So we're going to connect to AdventureWorks. Go into the data flow and create our OLEDB source. This source is going to be a query instead of a table. So I'm going to use the SQL command and then copy the query I have here. If I click on columns, I should see my columns listed. And OK. And now you're going to look at the common section. You'll find lookup under common. Drag that in and attach the output for the OLEDB source to lookup, and then double click on lookup. The first option here is the caching. We're going to leave these settings alone. Full cache is fine, and the OLEDB connection manager is what we need to use. Specify how to handle rows with no matching entries. By default, this says fail component, which means it's going to go down the fail path of the object. Instead, we want to redirect the rows to the no match output. This is because when it checks or looks up the records, there's not going to be a match. So what we want is, if there is no match, I want you to continue inserting the records or continue down that path. So if you click on connection, now we need to find the table. This is the table that the lookup will be scrutinizing. Product reports. And back in Visual Studio, we can hit Preview just to verify. Now click on Columns. The columns have been named the same, so that way it's very easy to match things up. Now in the Lookup Transformation Editor, what this is asking for in this section is the field that the lookup should be looking for. Use only the product ID. In order to assign this, you have to drag that line across. And this is all you have to do for the lookup to actually look for the product ID. Now the check boxes, you can put checks next to some of these fields, and it gives you options to add it as a new column. You can replace other fields. This is if you want to change some things after the matching has been done. You may want to do something different with these fields. But right now, we just want to compare the product ID and the product ID in our destination, and we want to insert the records if we don't find them. So click OK. And now we need a destination. Oledb destination. Now this pop-up is a little different. This is again the lookup, the output for the lookup technically. The destination contains multiple inputs or outputs. It wants to know what input-output are supposed to be connected to each other. So the outputs we have, just as we talked about, was the match and the no match. So the record is matching or the record does not match. In our case, we wanted to insert records if they're not found. So we're going to go to the lookup no match, and those are going to be sent down the input to the destination. Click OK. Double click on the Oledb destination. In my case, it's going to be the same database, but I'm going to be going to a table called Production Product Reports. Click Mappings just to make sure we're all matched up, which we should be. Click OK. And let's try running it. If we go to Management Studio, we can check the reports table, and we'll see that the records that weren't there, the 4 records from our query, have been inserted. To further test this lookup, what we're going to do is we will delete just one of these records and rerun the package a second time. And what we should see is we should see that same record be inserted back up to 4 because it does not match what's in the table. What we shouldn't have is we shouldn't have a duplication of all these records again. So let's try running this again. So we were able to execute the package a second time after we removed our one record. Let's check our table, and the product ID 709 has been returned. Now the field that it's checking is the product ID. So I can't change the product ID for us to test whether it inserts another record. So I'm going to have to go back and include another field back into our lookup. Our columns, remember how we dragged product ID over as a check? Well, I want to check another one. I want to check the color. So now the product ID and the color needs to be the same. And I'm going to go back to my table, and now I need to change the table in the source. And I have this update statement here where I changed it to a taupe color. This is the Road 550 with the product ID of 798. So I'm going to change that product ID of 798, and I'm going to make this a yellow color instead. So now the source record says yellow, but we have at our destination a taupe color for that same product ID. What should happen is when I run this package, we should see another record inserted because it doesn't see the record that matches the product ID and the color together. Okay, the execution was successful. We'll stop this and let's go and check our query. Let's check our table. And you'll see we now have another record. So to understand this, in the lookup, we added the color. So now it's looking at the product ID and the color. And as long as those two records match, or I should say, as long as there's a record that has those two values, then it considers it, then it's not going to insert a new record because it already exists. So what we did is we changed the color to yellow. So it checked the product ID, it checked the color, and it said, I have a taupe, but I don't have a yellow. I'm going to direct this to the not matched, and no match is going to go and insert the record into the destination. Something else I wanted to point out is also if we were to run the package again right now, we have all the records that match, the one that's been changed as well as the old one. What if we executed this package where everything matches? There's nothing going down the no match path. If we go back to our table, and nothing's changed. It went down the matched path, which means the lookup object has two paths. One we just used, which is the not match. And then if you click on lookup, you're going to find a second one. This is the matched. So we can send records that are matched into something else, or a file, or do something else with them if they match the records that already exist. We're going to change the no match output to a match output. So to do this, we're going to get rid of this line. Click on lookup, and we're going to drag it back again. It's going to give us that option. What do you want to do with the output? Last time we did the no match. This time we're going to switch it to match. And now the records that come down here and end up in the destination, they have to be the same. They have to, quote, match. We'll double click on the destination and make sure the mappings are working. Okay. Since we already have records in there, what we're going to do first is we're just going to delete all the records in the reports table. So there's nothing to compare to. If I select reports, so the table's empty. So the theory is when I run this, I should not have any records inserted because nothing matches nothing. And it ran successfully. Hit stop. Clear that. And let's look at the table. There's nothing in it. No records were found that matched inside the table. So what if we inserted those records and then we ran it? It would find the records. Does that mean it would put another copy of each record in the table? Let's recreate the table. And now we should have 4 records in here. Now let's see what the lookup does with these 4 records. It's successful. Let's look at our table. We already have 4 records, and now we've got double that. So basically what had happened is it did a lookup in the table. It found a product ID and a color that matched for the 4 records that it already has. And it inserted each one of those because that's what we did as our destination. So I hope everything here made sense. This is the Lookup Transformation. Please leave your comments below, and please like and subscribe. Thanks.